Welcome to Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. On this podcast, my guest and I will discuss topics and ways to help us to heal in every area of our lives. I believe that everyone can live a life that is happy, healthy, and whole. So I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get to it. Hey guys, real quick, before we jump into the episode, I need you to do the 3 S's for me. What is that? First of all, I need you to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss an episode of our podcast. Number 2, I need you to share it with your family and friends. Don't keep it to yourself, share it with someone else. Lastly, I need you to say something. Leave us a comment. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know what you want to see from us, what you like, what you don't like. We are open to your suggestions. We want to know everything that you want to let us know about the podcast. All right. Now, get back to the episode. All right. Welcome to the Deal to Heal with EJ's podcast. I am your host, Earnest James, and I believe that everyone can and should live a life that is whole, healed, and healthy. Excuse me. And that therefore, I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. Thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with EJ's podcast. If you haven't already, make sure that you guys subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network, and also subscribe to our podcast on all of your podcast listening platforms. Again, make sure you guys are checking us out on our podcast channel, which is the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network on YouTube, where you will not only find the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, but you will also find our sister podcast, which is the Girl Dad Discussions podcast, as well as some other podcasts. So make sure you guys go to the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you guys can check us out there. Also, our podcast is brought to us by excuse me, the Deal to Heal School for Learning, which is our school community. Again, just furthering our mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill by bringing you resources and workshops to help you grow in your emotional health as well as your mental health. So again, that's the Deal to Heal School for Living. Make sure you guys go there and check us out. It's free for the first 7 days. You guys can go and check it out. The link will be in the descriptions. And so, yes, our podcast is brought to us by the Deal to Heal School for Living. Make sure you guys go and check that out. All right. Today, just like any other day, we are blessed with the guest, Mr. Kam. How you doing?
I am doing fantastic. Thank you very much, E. James, for having me on. I'm really, really happy to be here.
No problem. No problem. First of all, let me say thank you for being here because you could have been anywhere else with anyone else, but you're here with me and my listeners, and I definitely appreciate it. So, Cam, we gonna jump right into this thing. Do me a favor, introduce yourself to
Sure.
my audience, and tell us who you are and a little bit about what you do.
So, my name is Kam Knight. I am a coach, international speaker, and author of a dozen books, many of them that you see behind me, in the area of mental, physical, and emotional performance that have sold over 500,000 copies and have over 10,000 ratings on Amazon. And now I talk about a concept called internal resistance. And to segue into that, it really started because most of my life I was a fairly driven individual. What I like to say is it's difficult not to be living in the culture and society that we are, where pretty much everyone is telling you to do more, be your best self, and reach for the stars. And in a way, that's kind of what you believe people should be doing. As a result, I've always wanted to do more, have more, and be more in life. And although I've had my fair share of success, I always felt like the success was more difficult than it needed to be, or that
Mhm.
I fell short or missed the mark. And I always wondered why that was. Why is it if I want to do something, I know what to do, I know how to do it, and I have the motivation, desire to do it, but for one reason or another, I can or don't do it. Now, at the time, there weren't a lot of good answers as to the cause.
Mhm.
The best answer, or the answer that was talked about the most, came down to beliefs, that you need to have good beliefs or that limiting beliefs will hold you back. And some of the similar answers were related to motivation or that discipline, that either you lacked motivation or didn't have the discipline to stick with things. And all of these are part of the equations, but I always felt like they were just a puzzle or just a piece of a bigger puzzle. And over the last 15 years, that question lingered in my mind. Every time I felt stuck, I wondered why. Why can't I get stuff done? Why do I keep spinning my wheels? Why don't I just do this dang thing so I can get the result that I want? And the more books I read, coaching I did, and seminars I attended, the more I learned about the complexities of the human brain. And over time, in the background, unknown to me, my brain was processing this all the information I was coming across. And at a certain point, I had this aha moment or this epiphany where I was like, hey, wait a minute. There's a part of our brain designed to hold us back. There's a part of our mind, it's hard to believe, that is built to keep us from growing and making progress. And I call this part resistance. And
Mhm.
it's a brick wall that we hit anytime that we want to do something, but we can't, no matter how much we want to do it.
Yeah, yeah. I love that because I share with you before we start recording that, I always refer to my often, I not always, but I refer to myself as a part-time procrastinator,
Yeah,
right? Because a lot of times, you have the ideas of things that you want to do, and some things you're able to do right away, just like knocking out that to-do list. And then on other
yeah,
days, at other times, you got this list and you're looking at it and you're kind of like, like I said, what you should be doing. You get up every morning and I
yeah,
need to upload that podcast and I need to do
yeah,
this and I need to do that. And you don't do it, as much as you
yeah,
desire to, because you do want the outcome. But it's
yeah,
like, and so I'm very interested in this conversation, just so
yeah,
I can grow myself, because
yeah,
again, that is something that I battle with every now and then. And one of the things that helps me, or that I do have, is once I start, I mean, like once I start doing things, then I get that momentum, and I have to kind of push myself to keep going so that I don't lose momentum. But sometimes it's just that getting started is like the hardest part. It's like, all right, you got this thing that you want to do, but like, all right, now let's get started working on it. So
yeah,
so let's have a conversation about this. So when
yeah,
you're, after you've begin to understand this for yourself, you said that you kind of break it down in three ways,
yeah,
how it works. So walk us through this process.
yeah. So it really helps to understand that the part of the brain that creates wants, it works separate from the part that actually allows us to act on the want. This is really key. So I'll say it one more time. The part of the brain that creates wants and desires works independent of the part of the brain that actually allows us to act on that desire. So we have one part of the brain that is creating wants, and in many ways, it's creating endless wants. And it doesn't check to see if a want is worth going after or pursuing. That's not his job. His job is only to create wants. And then we have another part of the brain that checks to see if that want is worth going after and pursuing. And if this part doesn't give the green light, we cannot act. So what's really important to understand here is that it's possible for the brain to both create a desire for something and to keep us from going after it. And this is in many ways what you're experiencing. You have this desire. What When we talked right before the podcast, you kind of talked about this book that you've been trying to finish. So
Mhm.
there's a desire to finish that book. But then there's another part of the brain that puts the red light on that desire. And for a long time I used to wonder, whoever created humanity whether it was God, religion, or God, aliens, or evolution, must have been really sick and twisted, because how could they do this to us? How could they create these passion and burning desires in us and keep us from going after them? But when you look at it from this perspective, it makes sense. And so, if anyone's ever experienced moments of this tug of war where they want to do this thing, but they can't, it's because of this process. There's two parts of the brain that are at play. It's not just this one part, and then we're just deciding not to do it. Now, what's more important to understand is that when resistance holds us back, how that works is that anytime we have a decision or an option that stands before us, it is evaluated by resistance using a whole host of criteria. And if the desire is not in line with any of the criteria, it will prevent action. And so it helps to think about standing before a panel of judges or board of directors. Every decision that comes up must go through them. If even one of the members is against the idea, it will not pass. So I would say you may have a desire to write a book, but then resistance filters through that desire using a whole host of criterias. And one of the criterias may be that you're too afraid of what will happen when you finish the book. Meaning, a lot of inspiring authors never finish their book because once they finish it, it means they have to market it and put themselves out there. And marketing isn't easy, and putting yourself out there means receiving feedback and criticism. And if a person is sensitive to receiving feedback and criticism, resistance will keep you from finishing the book now, so you don't have to face the feedback and criticism later. And unfortunately, resistance doesn't tell us when it's stopping us. It doesn't say, hey, E. James, you know that book that you're writing? Well, it might expose us to negative feedback and criticism that we
Yeah.
don't want, so I can't let you do it. It doesn't do that. It just creates this impenetrable wall that keeps you from doing it. And what's really challenging is because resistance doesn't tell us it's stopping us, oftentimes we think that it's us, that there's something wrong with us, that we don't have that quote unquote discipline, or that we're just lazy and don't have what it takes. But the reality is, we have this part of the brain that is holding us back. And, and unfortunately, it's not telling us that it's holding us back. Now, that's a second. So there's two pieces of the puzzle: want, resistance. But the third piece has to do tricks with resistance, meaning oftentimes, not only will resistance not tell us that it's stopping us, but it will use a lot of manipulative tricks to keep us from actually doing it. And by tricks, I mean, so I'll give examples of some of the more obvious tricks, such as watching television, scrolling through social media, playing
Yeah.
video games, even drinking and alcohol. And I say they're obvious because when we're doing those things, a part of us knows that we should be doing something else.
Yeah.
But then the not so obvious are a little bit more deceptive. Have you ever gotten into a state of over planning where we're trying to plan what to do and how to do it and the right way to do it? And I say that's a trick because when we spend all our time on planning, we're not actually taking action. And because we're not taking action, we're not making progress. And when we don't make progress, resistance wins. So this is more deceptive trick because it gives the illusion that we're working on our goal, but not doing the things that's actually going to move the needle forward, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
that does, it actually makes a lot of sense. And as a entrepreneur, that is one of the things that we talk about a lot, like with our coaches, is that you get so busy doing busy work of what we call it, like you're doing all
Yes.
these plans, and I'm doing this and this and this, but none of the stuff that you're doing is making money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like you're a business owner, or you're an entrepreneur because you want to make money, but you're doing all this stuff that none of it makes money. It was like, no, you got to, change your focus and make sure that you're working on the right things. But I do want to
And
go
so
back
this
to,
is exactly how the tricks show up. So we have a desire of being a business owner. There's some fear that's going on, or I don't even want to use the word fear, but there's
Mhm.
something going on internally where resistance is saying, I'm not going to let you do it. And when it manifests, it manifests in all this work that can't possibly help you succeed. And what's even worse is we will feel exhausted and frustrated because we're putting all this work and not
Mhm.
getting results when the reality is we're just spinning in circles um with with the busy work.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it also goes back to, you said, to something else that you said with the tricks, is that a lot of times you don't even recognize that, you have these resistance, right? Because it doesn't tell you. But when you start doing, some of your mental work and things of
Yeah,
that nature, you do realize, like, oh well, there is a thing that's called the fear of success. You know what I
yeah,
mean? It's like you got this great idea. It's like, man, this thing could really take off, but there's a part of you that's like, we've never done that. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like, what would happen if it did take off? What would happen if, you all of a sudden, did become, very successful and well known for the thing that you've done, and
yeah,
that part of you that has never experienced that. Maybe that part that's kind of holding you back is like, well, let's just slow down a little bit, go a
yeah,
little slower, because we've never been successful on that level,
yeah,
that have you finished the thing that you're working on. What I just say, the book, had I finished the book, and the space or the area or level of success that I may have, I haven't experienced yet.
yeah,
And so that part of my brain is kind of like, well, that's uncharted territory. That's all new and scary, and
yeah.
so it's kind of like, well, let's just slow you down a little bit.
And that's what happens. The brain is literally going, you can actually have massive success. It's really easy to do it, especially living in this culture. The
Mhm.
opportunities are endless. But a lot of times you create more challenge because there is a part of our brain that is worried about the success. And there's many reasons why the fear of success comes up. One
Mhm.
is because, well, backtrack and say a lot of times when we look at success, we think, why would be afraid of success? If I can make more money, get more people to respect me, have the things that I want that the money can get, like the big
Yeah.
house, fancy car, and the nice toys and all of that, what would be there to be afraid of? Well, there's a lot of stuff. One has to do with change. The way the brain works, it's not designed to lead us necessarily toward pleasure and joy. It's actually designed to for safety more than pleasure. And so it will think if we do something that could lead to success, it might expose us to more people. And if a person is sensitive to the thoughts, judgments, and actions and reactions of others,
Mhm.
the brain goes, well, more success means more people's judgment will be on, and the more fear that it creates. Other times, success creates more responsibilities. Yeah, sure. If you have a big business, it means you have a lot more clients. You have a lot more clients to worry about, a lot more
Mhm.
customers, complaints to go through, and there's just more pressure that comes with success. And so
Yeah.
our brain will sabotage us or have us procrastinate in getting big so we can avoid that pressure and things of that nature. But success can also, the fear of success can also come from identity. If we don't have the identity that we are a successful person or that we deserve success, then that can also play in to the brain holding us back. But sometimes it just comes down to change. The brain likes the familiar over
Mhm.
the unfamiliar. And even though the familiar is annoying and painful, the brain knows it. And going into the unfamiliar, which could be pleasure and joyous, it's too much of a risk. So, again, this goes back to what I said, the brain prefers safety over joy. So, If something is joyous but is new, uncharted territory, the brain will actually stick with pain, which is why you hear a lot of people who are stuck, they're just in pain and don't want to be in the situation they are. But because, the brain is designed to keep them in that versus going towards the new.
Yeah, yeah, and I like that because I think they kind of go together. In some spaces, that fear of change, number one, but then also that unknowing of success or what that would bring is like how much of a change that would be to my life.
Yeah.
Because I'm used to, I had a guy on another podcast I was watching, right, and he was at the beginning of his um, excuse me, I feel like I got to sneeze. He was at the beginning of his entrepreneur journey in real estate, and he was dating a young lady, and he had bought this big house and everything prior to he's really getting into entrepreneurship and real estate. And so what he started doing is he started renting out rooms in his house because it was just the two of them when they had this big huge house. So he started renting out rooms and he started making money from it. And so the more money he made, the more rooms he would rent out. And so it got to the point where he was making decent money, and he started investing in real estate and stuff. And the young lady kind of got upset because she was like, this is not what I wanted or whatever. And he said, well, don't you want to be successful? And she said, I'm used to being broke.
Yeah.
And so he was like, of course, that was the end of their relationship because he's like, you're not even, you don't even want to go. But in her
Yeah.
mind, she was like, I'm used to the struggle. I'm used to being right here. You're trying to take me to a whole nother level that, not necessarily she probably didn't want to go to, but it probably just so, far fetched or so much unknown in her mindset that it was like, what, I don't even want to go in that direction. I'm gonna stay right here where it's safe, and so like you said, just that fear of change, number one, and
Yeah.
then also that fear of the unknown of success, because it's like, man, if I finish this book, I could be successful more so than I am now, but then how successful? Like, what if it becomes a
Yeah.
world class book or whatever, and now I'm doing book signings and being on TV shows, and I then all of that, just kind of like,
Creates a lot of
you know what
pressure.
I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I do want to bring up a good point about this guy and his significant other because this is one of the ways we limit ourselves.
Mhm,
This guy could well easily have stayed with this woman and limited his success.
mhm,
And this is how one of the tricks of resistance would have come up. The tricks would have been like, oh, we're moving forward, but if we move forward, that means I have to leave this person.
mhm,
And, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to be so self centered that I give up a relationship just because of money or success.
mhm,
So, a person who has a lot of resistance to success and the tricks playing out could well easily have stayed with that person
yeah,
and limited their own growth. And I see it happen all the time. And that was one of the challenges I had. And one of the biggest challenges with people holding you back is when they're your family. And
oh, yeah,
unfortunately, a lot of times our own families, our own parents and brothers and sisters will unconsciously do things to hold their members back in a lot of ways. And I felt that a lot. I felt that quite a bit to the point where I had to kind of cut them out just so I could go on and do what I wanted to do. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and unfortunately, there is a saying that your family a lot of times are your first bullies. You know what I mean? They're
Yeah.
the first ones to kind of push you around a little bit. But definitely going back to what we were saying, because I definitely agree with that, because there is a thing. One of my other mentors, Dr. Eric Thomas, often talks about his mom, right? Because his mom, I think it was like 14 of them or something like that, and none of, or should I say, the majority of them, his uncles and everything, they never finished high school. You know what I mean? And so you take his mom who had this drive that, I want to do a little more. I want to go to college. I want to have a career. And to the point that when she, started going that way, there was some resistance in our family because it was like,
Yeah.
no, we don't go to college. You know what I mean? Like we don't do that in this family. Like we're
Yeah.
here. This is where we stay. And she had to, again, like you said, push away from that and kind of like, all right, let me separate myself because I have something that I'm trying to do. And it may be, scary for the rest of the family because it's like, no, we've always stayed in this box. And even I'll even say, like, for my family, in the physical part, my grandmother, and I don't know if this was just something that she liked or, whether it was a thing of fear even for her, but she always wanted everybody to stay close, so none of her kids, after, became adults and, getting their, starting their own families, none of us are, should I say, my mom and my brothers and sisters were no less than like 45 minutes from my grandmother's house. You know what I mean? It was like, no, we don't move out of state. We don't,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like we stay right here. We need to be able to reach each other. And so
Yeah.
even when I got old enough and wanted to move out and was like, all right, mom, I'm about to go. And I did go to another state. There was even some resistance from my mom because it was the
Yeah.
same thing. Like, no, we stay close together. It was like, no, mom, we gotta, we gotta branch out a little bit.
Yeah. So this is huge. I don't think you even realize how huge what you brought up is. It actually comes down to a concept called family systems theory.
Mhm,
It's not internal family systems, which is a much newer model that's become really popular right now. In fact, internal family systems um, was built off of family systems theory that Murray Bowen brought into the forefront back, I think, in the 1950s and 60s.
mhm,
And what he said is that we can't look at human and human behavior individually on its own. We have to look at it as a system. And one of the earliest systems that we grow into is the family system.
mhm,
And in the family system, there's all these different roles. You have the class crown, you have just different roles. And unconsciously, the system creates pressure for us to stay in those roles.
mhm.
And the system creates pressure for us to maintain the system. And so what you're talking about is, hey, the system stays together, we don't move out. And when one person in the system wants to move out, unconsciously, the system creates pressure saying, no, you can't do that.
Yeah.
No, because this is the way the system works. Or the example you talked about earlier, where there was this one person, where this woman, she wanted to actually go get go to college and get a degree. What the system was doing was saying, no, we don't do that. If you
Mhm.
go to college and get a degree, you're disrupting the system.
Yeah.
And it's all unconscious. We don't
Yeah.
realize we're doing it. The family members don't realize they're actually limiting the other family members. It's just happening unconsciously. It just seems so obvious that you would limit this other person. And so this is one of the criterias that I talked about, has to do with family systems. Meaning, if I go out and do this thing, will this disrupt the family system? And if it will, the brain will create resistance. And
Yeah.
even if we try to push past that resistance, the family system will try to come in and enforce it. And you know what's really crazy? Because this is a lot of the work that I am working on currently, is the system never dies. Meaning, if a person does have the confidence and the strength to leave the system, they will attract people who are like their family members and recreate it. And
Mm.
so we have to be really careful. And what's even worse is, even when we are careful to not recreate the family system, the system lives in us and it will try to reinforce our role, even though other people aren't around. So this stuff gets pretty complex, the internal resistance. It's both
Yeah.
fascinating and complex at the same time, which is why there isn't just like simple cookie cutter solutions to overcoming procrastination and sabotage, as I'm often asked that. people are always asking me this like simple solution they can overcome it. And yeah, this is kind of, like I said, an interesting aspect of the whole internal resistance equation.
Yeah, yeah. And that is that a book that you said the family structure? Is that a book or just a concept?
Yeah, I believe it's called Family Systems Theory. And again, it came out by Murray Bowen. And I didn't learn it as a book. I learned it through the work I was doing.
Hmm.
So it may well have shown up as a book, but it's actually the heart of a lot of you know, academic psychology.
Yeah, I like that. I'm gonna look that up because I think
Yeah.
that's interesting. But speaking of the work that you do, because you're also a coach, right? And so you do help people kind of work their way through this. So tell
Yeah.
us a little bit more about your coaching program.
Yeah. So the reason I kind of came to this concept is because in my own journey, I was, as I mentioned, reading books, attending seminars, and getting coaching. But at the same time, I had developed a technique that breaks the barrier between our conscious and unconscious mind. So much of our unconscious mind is hidden from us, which is why it's called the unconscious. So we don't necessarily see how the activity in our unconscious is affecting our thinking as well as our decisions and actions. We just assume the thoughts in our heads and the actions that we're taking are things that we're choosing to think and take, when in reality, it's happening all internally and the thoughts are coming into our conscious. And so I found a way to disengage the defense mechanism and take initially myself into the unconscious. And now I help people to go guide them into their unconscious. And I like doing it that way because the human mind and body are complex. They're so
Mhm.
complex, no one person could know all the facets of a
Right.
person's issue. Even if you were studying human behavior and psychology from the day you were born until the day you die, you would only scratch the surface of what's going on. And as a result, no one person could know all of another person's problems. So I thought to myself when I was doing this work, if my challenges are in my head, why don't I just go there for the answer? And that's why I developed this technique. And so what's great about it is when I take people in the unconscious, we work on their specific issues, their specific blocks, their specific resistance, and we get at the root of what's causing them. Now, this might sound like hypnosis and NLP, but it's not that. It's something very different. And that's kind of how I help people work through their resistance.
I like that. I like it a lot. Do you have a do you? I know you've written several books, but do you have a book on that kind of that idea, that procedure as well?
Not yet. And there's a reason for why I don't have a book on that because, as I mentioned, when resistance stops us from doing something, it uses manipulative tricks. And these tricks can be quite devious.
Mm,
And so, one of the tricks that was coming up for me was writing more books. So, in the beginning, when I had written some books, I wanted to market them and put myself out there, but I had resistance doing that.
mhm.
And so my brain kept saying, you know what? Why don't you write this other book first? And once you finish it, you'll definitely feel confident to go market yourself. And then I would write that book. And then once it was time to market, my brain would create an idea for another book. And it
Yeah.
did that until I'd written over a dozen books. And it was a perfect trick to keep me from taking the bigger actions in life because
Mhm.
a book is a big endeavor, especially
Yeah.
prior to ChatGPT when I wrote all my books.
Yeah.
And it took a lot of time and energy and mental strain. And all that time I was focusing on the book, I wasn't able to put to marketing or other things that resistance was having me avoid. So I made a commitment to not write any more books. And it was only then that I start getting on podcasts and doing other marketing stuff. And in fact, if I continue writing book, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now.
Right.
Yeah.
I
So,
think that is, yeah, I think that is so great, and thank you for being vulnerable and even
oh,
admitting that, because that is one of the things that I've dealt with too. Because like I mentioned, this one physical hardcover book I've been trying to finish, and in that same time period, I've written about 4 or 5 ebooks. You know
ebooks.
what I mean? It's like, oh, here's another idea, and I can knock this out real fast. And so you keep doing that, and then this main book is sitting on the shelf, like, hey, what about me? So,
And those ideas never stop. Like for me, I still get these amazing ideas of
Mhm,
different things I can write about. And it does take some effort to say no, no
mhm.
more. Just focus on the thing that I'm doing now. So yeah.
Yeah, I love it, man. This is great. This is a great conversation, man. Cam, I thank you so much for being on, for being my
Yeah.
guest. I want you to have the last word. I want you to leave us with a word of advice, or information, inspiration, however you feel, and also leave us with your contact information, where we can find more information about you and your books and your programs and things of that nature. So I'll give you a couple seconds to think about that. To my audience, thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Make sure you guys are checking us out on our website, the dealhealfulfill.org. Again, that's dealhealfulfill.org. We're definitely going to do some upgrades to it. I know it's a little outdated, but it's still there. So you guys can check us out there. Also, you can also find more about me on my personal website, my speaker's website, which is earnestjamesspeakslife.com. Again, that's earnestjamesspeakslife.com, to have me to come out to be a speaker or workshop facilitator at your for your organization. Also, ebooks by ejames.com is where my ebooks can be found. The ebooks will be going away. Well, should I say, this website, ebooks by ejames, will be going away, but you can still get the ebooks. You actually can get the ebooks for free when you check out our Deal to Heal School for Living platform. So you can go there. Again, it's absolutely free for the first 7 days. You guys can go there, and there is a resource tab where you can download all 3 of the ebooks. Actually, like, I think it's like 4 of them on there that you could download all 4 ebooks for free. Again, you could just scan the QR code in the corner to go to the website and check that out. Deal to Heal Teas, put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tee and be inspired all day. That is our tagline. Make sure you guys go and check out our inspirational t-shirt line, which includes our t-shirts with our podcast merch, which is our t-shirts with our podcast logos on it. There's one for the Girl Dead Discussions podcast, as well as one for the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Make sure you guys are going and check that out. Last but not least, one of the things that I've been blessed to be a part of over the last couple of years is the forgiveness is an organization called Forgiveness Mission. And what we do, we have free virtual workshops bi-monthly, talking about the area of forgiveness of self, forgiveness of others, even forgiveness of the world. These workshops are absolutely free. They are virtual. So you can go to forgivenessmission.com to sign up for our next free virtual workshop. So whenever you're listening to this, either a workshop just ended or there's one that's going to come up. So again, you can go to forgivenessmission.com to sign up for our free virtual workshops. And once again, our um, our podcast is brought to us by the Deal to Heal School for Living. You guys can go and check that out. Again, it's free for the first 7 days. You guys can go in there and get the ebooks for free during that time period. Again, just scan the QR code in the corner, and you guys can check out that platform. And last but not least, and I know I said that before, we have also started our nonprofit, which is Deal to Heal the World Incorporated, where we can do more work in the community to bring more healing and help to people free of charge. And so you guys can go there. The link is also in the description, where you guys can go and make a donation to help us carry out this work to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill. So make sure you guys go and check us out there. Cam, once again, I want to say thank you so very much for being on. Thank you for everything that you do, man. I want you to have the last word, so the floor is
Sure.
yours.
So I usually end podcasts by letting people know that wanting doesn't equate to having. Just because we want something doesn't mean we'll take the necessary steps to do it. And it's because we have this part of the brain called resistance that's designed to stop us. Oftentimes, if a person doesn't realize that their own self will stop them and get in their way, they assume getting a thing would be easy. And when they're faced with challenges, they get derailed. But when we can go in with the expectation that hurdles are likely going to show up and oftentimes they're going to be coming from ourselves, we can not get derailed when they do come up and learn how to work through them. And then, as far as how to get in touch with me, I've got 3 free guides for everyone who listened to this far. The first is called Prompt Engineering for Your Mind. The human brain was original ChatGPT, and you can prompt it just like ChatGPT to not only give you answers and solutions, but take action on those answers and solutions. Guide number 1. Guide number 2 is build habits, skills and habits in your sleep. It's actually possible to put less effort in developing behaviors, routines, and habits and do it at a higher level. And that's guide number 2. And the third guide talks more about internal resistance. The person reading it will learn more about why their wants get in their way, how some of the other reasons for resistance, and even some of the other tricks. And they can get all 3 of those guides on my website at kamknight.com.
I love it. I love it. We can't end it no better than that. To my listeners, thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with EJ's podcast, where our mission is to help you to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. Until next time, you guys be blessed. Thanks for listening to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Remember to listen, like, subscribe, and share. This episode has been brought to you by Deal to Heal Teas. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tea and be inspired all day. Let's go to dealtohealteas.myshopify.com. Remember, our mission is to help you to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for listening. Hey guys, if you're enjoying this podcast, then I know you'll enjoy the Girl Dad Discussion podcast. I'm your host, Earnest James, and I believe the relationship between a daughter and her father is one of the most important relationships a young lady can have. And therefore, my mission is to promote the daddy-daughter relationship by sharing the voices of girl dads to the world. So check out our podcast on every platform where podcasts can be listened to. And if you want to watch the podcast, check us out on our YouTube channel. Again, that's the Girl Dad Discussions podcast with your host, Earnest James.